Good morning, everyone. We are going to look today at using Quirkos and Quirkos Web to help you with your qualitative analysis. It's a live session if you're watching live, so if you've got any questions, put them in the chat and we'll cover them, demonstrate anything you're interested in. Otherwise, just sit back, relax, and I'll take you through the basic steps of using Quirkos for qualitative analysis. So the first thing you need to do is just go to www.quirkos.com, and that will take you to our home page. And at the very top right here, you can see there's a link here for the web app, and that enables you to access the Quirkos software directly in your browser. Now this will work on any device, so it will work in a tablet or a phone or any kind of Mac, Linux or Windows environment. So anything where you can kind of connect to the internet will work fine. We've also now kind of added recently support for different languages in the interface. Quirkos itself works with any kind of language, so you can use left to right, right to left, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, any different types of character sets. We've now got the interface though in 5 different languages, and so that helps. So it's very easy to kind of get engaged with and get going with. If you've not signed up for an account already, you can do that just by clicking on the sign up button here. There's a free trial for 14 days. You do have to put in credit card information, but it won't charge you at all if you cancel during 14 days, but after that it will start to charge you quarterly or annually, however you prefer to pay. But do have a look at the rates. Quirkos is probably cheaper than any of the other qualitative software packages out there, even the kind of cloud-based ones, the web-based ones. So do look at them. We've got significant discounts for students, academics, charities, public sector users, and also we've got additional discounts for people who are living in emerging economies and developing countries. So there's a 25% discount for people in those areas as well. So it is probably the most affordable and accessible option out there. But let's see, now if you've gone through and generated an account, how you'd go through and use that. So the first thing I'm going to do is log into my account, so daniel@quirkos.com. Put in my password if I can remember it. Yes, I can, that's good, great. So you can see here that I've got projects that I've been working on previously. So this list here shows me all the recent projects I've worked on, kind of in order of creation. I've also got a tab here that shows projects that were shared with me, so where other people worked on the projects and then sent them to me to have a look at as well. Because collaboration is a very important part of Quirkos Web. And then, so yeah, I've got lots of projects here that I've been experimenting with, but you can also import projects here as well. So you can bring in projects from other qualitative software using the RefiQDA exchange standard. But you can also create a new project. So that's what we're going to do today, and I'll take you through the steps for doing that. So I'm just going to click first on the new project button here, and it basically wants to know the name of the project. So we'll call this smartphone project. You've got the option here to password protect the project. I'm not going to do that today, but you can put a password on there, and that means it's end-to-end encrypted, so that the data can't be interpreted if somebody kind of gets in between your connections, and while it's stored on our server, it's also encrypted as well, so nobody, not even us, can get access to the data. So if you're working with confidential data, we definitely recommend that you do that. But this is just a fun project today, so I'm just going to click on Create, Project Created, great. And so this is the main layout. On the left side of the screen, you'll see this is what we call the canvas area. And this is where we create the bubbles and codes which we use to explore and analyze the qualitative data. And on the right side of the screen, this is where we put in the source of the data, so the text that we want to analyze. So the project's empty at the moment, and the first thing we're going to do in this case is bring in some data sources. The example we're going to use here is actually one that you can download for yourself. So if you go to quirkos.com/workshops, the link is also in the support page. You'll see we've got a couple of example projects here. So we've got breakfast one, qual, so this is a project where we've interviewed people about qualitative research careers. So these are real transcripts of semi-structured interviews. We've also got a project on the Scottish Referendum for Independence. Again, these are real qualitative interviews. And this one, which is we're going to look at today, which is a kind of a smaller example project, but it's looking at smartphone addiction. It's also looking at how we can integrate literature into our project as well, and that's one of the things that I want to cover today. So you can download these files, which I've already done, and then you can import them into Quirkos. So the main menu button is what we call this hamburger menu, because it's got 3 lines on the top left. We click on this and then we'll choose add sources. You can create a blank source, so you can write into a source, and you can copy and paste from multiple other places. But I'm just going to choose the import option here. And if I go to the smartphone project folder, I've got what I've got here is basically 3 Word files, which are basically extracts actually from pretend interviews with people. It's looking at the impact of smartphones in the family. And I've also got an article. So the PDF of an article which is about smartphone addiction, which was another qualitative research project. But here I kind of want to see what the difference is between the different people and how that compares to the established literature. So I'm going to bring in all of these projects, all these files, smartphone articles, Simon, Lynn and Chris, so those are our interviews as well. And I'm going to click on open and bring them all in right now. You can bring files in and import them at any kind of stage. So this is the smartphone article, so it comes from the Qualitative Report, which is an open source journal. But yeah, so this is about smartphone addiction, parents' perceptions of smartphone use and parenting practices. And then you'll see I've got these tabs here on the left of the screen. I've got lots of them, I can scroll through them. And these also show us the extracts of text. Okay, so these are the different sources that we've brought in. So we've got 3 extracts from interviews, and we've got this journal article here. It may seem a bit strange that I'm bringing in a journal article as well at the same time, but I'll explain the rationale behind this in a moment. So this button here shows all our different sources. We can filter them, we can look for them by property or anything else, which we'll apply in a minute, and we can click to open one of these. So we'll open Lynn's or Chris's. If you've got a lot of sources in the project, then this helps a lot. You can also search in here as well. So we put in Lynn, we'll find Lynn's source, and so on. So this button here allows us to kind of manage the sources, and they're all represented by these tabs here. We can close the tabs, and we can also remove the sources from the project, which I'll show you how to do later, but we've just turned off that tab, so we'll just put Simon's back on there. So we can rearrange and move these around as well. Okay, so now we've brought in these sources of text. What we want to do is categorize them in some way. And what I mean by that is to describe them in ways that might be useful later for doing subset analysis or for looking through see how different types of respondents are talking in different ways. But it's also useful just to keep track of all the different information that we have about the participants in our study. So it's quite common to have like a database or a table or an Excel spreadsheet somewhere with all the information about the people we've interviewed, but we can keep this directly in the project as well. So I'm going to click here on this cog button here. This is what represents the projects here. And then we can edit the name if we want, so by default it's got the file name on there, so we can remove that. But we're also going to add new properties here. So I'm going to click plus to create a new property, and then we're going to call this, so it could be anything, but we'll call this age. And then we'll put in a new value. We've not put any values here yet, and we'll say 14. So I think Simon is the child in this project. Oops, sorry. Let's enter to save. Okay, great. So I'll click save now. Okay, so Simon now has the value of age, and we can set his age to be 14. And this property age has now been propagated across all the different sources, so we can tell the computer what the age of all the different sources of people that we've put in here. We'll also add a new property here, which we'll call, I'm not really sure what to ever call this, but we'll call it family role. And we'll say that this person is a child. So the family role in this person is child, because we've got interviews in this project with children, mums, dads, maybe we've got grandparents as well. so we can decide what their family role is. And then it might be useful later on to see, what are all the children saying about smartphone addiction? What are all their parents saying? Is there a difference between what the mums and dads say? And so we can use the properties to define our sources in that way. So we'll click Save here. So we're done with Simon for now. But let's just go quick to Lynn. So Lynn's the mum in this example project. So we're going to go here to the properties. We've not put in an age for her yet. Maybe it's impolite to say, but anyway, we'll say that she is 34. And for family role, we've only got child here, but we'll put in there as a new family role. We can add more properties if we need, but that's good for now. And later on that will allow us to filter that. We can do the same again for Chris, so he's the dad. So we'll put his age in as 35. His family role can be father. So that way we've told the computer quite a lot of things about these different types of sources. Now we have this smartphone article in here as well. So this is where it seems to be getting a little bit confusing. So there isn't really an age. Well, yeah, it's a 2019 article, so we could say that it's, like 4 years old. But that's not really applicable here. But we probably want to create a bunch of other properties to describe this. So the first one we might say is data type. So what source of data is this? Well, this is a journal article. And we can put in things like author. So basically the bibliographic information. It's Johnson et al., I think. And then we could have year as 2019. So year 2019, author, Johnson, data type, journal article. So now we know a bunch of stuff. So if we're bringing in all our bibliography here, we could again quite quickly look for just stuff from the journal article, see stuff that was published over a particular year or by a particular author. And we can put multiple authors in here if we need to. So we'll click Save here. And the last thing we want to do really is go through here, and now we've got this property here for data type. Well, this is not a journal article, so let's put an interview. So this is an interview. Lynn's is an interview. Simon's is an interview. So now we can see results which come from either the existing literature or from the people that we've interviewed for the project, so our primary data source. So what that enables us to do is in the future we'll be able to see just the results from interviews, or maybe you want to see just results for focus groups or surveys, but also anything which you've got from the wider literature, and that could be quite useful too. So I'm going to come back here, and now we've kind of described these. I'm just going to actually make the text size a little bit bigger. So I'm just clicking on the hamburger menu here, clicking on settings, and making the font size. I'll make it as big as it will go, just because it's a little bit better when it's streaming in the video like this. Okay, so now we've got our sources of data here. Now we've described those sources of data using the properties. What I'm going to do now is kind of start the analysis. I'm doing a kind of like thematic analysis, grounded theory kind of approach. I'm creating codes and themes as I kind of create and identify them from the data. So I'm just going to read through here and create some codes and themes. So first sentence, this is Lynn, this is the mum. She's saying, I feel that life with cell phones has made my job as a parent much harder. It's become a constant battle with my son to get him off the phone, doing anything else, going outside, or even just interacting with me. Okay, so already we've got some interesting stuff here. So let's look at this first sentence. I feel that life with cell phones has made my job as a parent much harder. So what I can say is, okay, what's this about? We'll create some in vivo codes here. So life with cell phones. So we're creating a new theme. I'm going to call it life with cell phones. There's space in here to put in a longer description if we need to. And we can choose any kind of random color. So just some kind of green would be fine. There's our life with cell phones theme. Now, this also has got some other stuff going on here. So job as parent, much harder. So there's a couple of things here. So this is a negative statement. I might want to tag it in that way. And also it's talking about job as parent. That's an interesting concept. I'm interested to what this person thinks their role as a parent is. Is their role to be disciplinary in terms of working with cell phones? I don't know. This could be an interesting thing that lots of people are talking about. So I'm going to drag and drop this text, which I've selected, onto the canvas area again to create a new bubble. And first of all, I'm going to have one which is negative, just in case I'm kind of keeping track of negative things that people are saying, positive things people are going to say. I'm also going to select this text, and I'm going to put it here again, and I'm going to have this role of parent theme. That can be orange. Okay, so I've already got kind of 3 codes which I've created. And these bubbles, which represent the codes, I can drag and drop to move them around. And I can also layer them on top of each other, which we'll look at in a minute. And I can drag more text to them. So let's look at the next sentence. Become a constant battle with my son to get him off the phone and doing something else, or even going outside, or even just interacting with me. Okay, so this is also a negative statement. So I'll drag and drop that onto the negative bubble. You can see now that the relative size is changing. So the more text we have onto one of the bubbles in Quirkos, the bigger it gets. And this gives us the sense of what's emerging from the data as we're analysing and interpreting it. So what else? Is this also about the role of parent? I guess it is, because this person's saying that it's a battle with their son. So it's... they obviously think that they should be doing something else, and that's their role as a parent, to try and encourage them to do that. We can also say that this is about, I guess, social impacts on sociability. I'm not quite sure whether that's the right theme, but we'll put it on there as well. Anyway, and as we go along, we can create more and more of these codes. You'll see that there's a kind of color-coded stripe next to here. If you hover your mouse over it, it will show you what that code represents. Social impacts, role of the parent, negative. If you change your mind and say, okay, this isn't really about social impacts, that means something else, you just right click, delete the highlight, and it removes from that code. So now social impacts has gone tiny because it doesn't have anything associated to it, and it's been removed from that particular area. We can always add it back later if we need to. We can go on and interpret more. And it's such a waste of energy because we fight about it and he's angry with me all day. Okay, that's negative. This is probably also about family conflict. I have a different shade of red, I think, for that, so still negative, but something a bit different. Okay, a dark one, great. So we can go on and keep creating these different codes. Now, as you can see, you might get to a stage here where, you know, we've looked at basically 3 sentences and created already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different codes. We could probably create a lot more. Battles, interaction, fresh air, exercise, waste of energy, exhaustion, lots of different ways that we could interpret this data. And we may change some of these things later on. And there's flexibility to do that, to manage these codes and interact with them here. So if I right click here on family conflict, I can choose edit here, and we can change the name. So maybe family conflict's a bit vague. Let's just call this, too specific. Let's just call this conflict. And we can change the color. Maybe I didn't like that particular hue. It was a bit dark, wasn't it? So then we've got this code here for conflict. But we can also create subcategories here by creating other codes and dragging them, dropping them on top of each other. Excuse me. So one of the things we might want to do, we can right click anywhere to create a new bubble at that place in the canvas. So I can right click here, choose new quirk, and then I'm going to choose one and create one which is called sentiment analysis, really. So sentiment, and we'll drag and drop the negative bubble on there, so it becomes a subcategory of sentiment. And we'll also create another one which we'll call positive. Well, we didn't find anything positive said yet in this project, but we probably will in the future. So we'll drag and drop that onto sentiment as well. And now you can see, you can move the sentiment analysis around. That's what we call the parent quirk. And underneath it, it's got these subcategories, positive and negative. Now what we can do with these codes at any time is double click on one of them. We'll do that right now, and it will show us all the data which has been coded to them. So sentiment, for example, we've not coded anything actually directly to there, but if we go to positive, okay, nothing coded there, but yes, negative, lots of things have been coded. And these are all the different extracts from all the different sources. You can click on them to see where they came from, that we coded to this negative theme. And anywhere in Quirkos where you've got these extracts, you can click to select all of them, or just some of them with these tick boxes, and then you can copy and paste them. So if you're writing up a section in Word, or you're doing a presentation in PowerPoint or something, you can copy and paste these quotes. They'll come in with the attributions, which source, the name of the source that they came from, and you can use those to basically kind of back up a statement that you're trying to make, or illustrate a statement that you're trying to make about how you're interpreting that data. So I'm just going to click here on the home button to go back to the main screen. We can do this for any of the other codes. So role of parent, what have we got in here? We'll double click, and these are the two quotes we have so far about what Lynn sees as being the role of the parent. But if we coded from some of the other sources, this would have come from all of them. So let's do a little bit more work. Let's go into Chris's code source here. I think it's become pretty normal for children to have their own cell phones now. So this is about life with cell phones, so we can put that in there. Simon's not too bad, really. I'm sure most of his friends are using their phones a lot more. Oh, that sounds positive. Okay. I'm not sure whether this first statement is probably neutral. We might create another code here called neutral. Neutral kind of blue. Drag and drop that onto sentiment. And we'll put this as a neutral statement. Okay, so you can see how we kind of are creating more categories and playing around here. But anyway, now we've coded across some different sources. If I double click on my life with cell phones, extract here, we've now got comments from Chris and we've got comments from Lynn. We can click here to go back to where that quote appears in the text. Or we can select all of these and copy and paste them to put somewhere useful. Now click back here on the home button. What have we got here? The other thing we've done here is we've got the smartphone article here, so it would be kind of interesting to see what people here are saying. It indicates some remarkable effects parental smartphone use is having in the lives of study participants. So remarkable is not particularly interesting, but authoritative parents are more likely to cooperate with the use of such monitoring systems. Okay, so that's something about the role of the parent. So what I'm trying to get at here is that it's sometimes quite useful to have the literature in there at the same time. What that means is you can show how your findings are comparing directly with the literature. When you come to directly write up, you can have quotes from smartphone articles. This was Johnson et al., for example, and what they say and how that compares to what the people in your project are saying. That's always one of the things that you're obviously encouraged to do when you're writing literature, writing up a master's thesis or PhD dissertations, connecting it to the literature, comparing and contrasting it with what other people are kind of saying and talking about there. So by having our literature, so articles or textbook chapters in the same project, we can code our literature in the same way that we would code and analyze our data. And by using the same themes, the same topics, it really helps us see how our data connects with the literature, and really helps us when we come to the writing up process because everything's in the same place. But we don't always have to do that. And because we've described using the source properties that this is from a journal article, we can use the query function, which I'm going to show you now in Quirkos, to separate those things and look at them differently and see how they compare. So for example, the first thing I'm going to do here now is click on this button here. This is the filter view, and this allows us to add a filter to the data so we only see results from some part of it. So I'll click here to add a filter, and we'll choose the property here. We have data type, sorry, there it is. Data type equals interview, and then I'll apply the filter. Right, and so now this is showing the data that we've coded that just comes from the interviews in our project. So there's from Lynn, we go to the role of the parent one. I thought we coded something to Chris as well. Yes, there. Oh, sorry, in the life with cell phones one. Yeah. And so, again, here we can copy things. So maybe we just want to have data just from what life was like with cell phones and from all our respondents that were in an interview. But there's also the option here with this button here to split the screen and to do a comparison query. So on the left side, now we've got the results just from the interview, but we'll add another query here where the data type is a journal article. So now we're looking at our literature, and we can see what's the difference between how our respondents are talking about the role of parent and how the literature is, how in this case our smartphone article is. So it's not only a great way to start your literature review or systematic review, but also to then later on connect it with your data. And you can do all that in the same project, and it allows you to do these types of comparisons. Now, one of the other things that we might want to do here is if we remove these filters, so that's how we can kind of compare between the literature and our own data, but we might want to also compare between different types of people in the project. So maybe we're interested to see what does the mother say compared to what the people with the father role say in this. And it might be interesting to look across life with phones, and we can see here, so okay, we've only got one mum and one dad in this project at the moment, but the mum has definitely got a very negative experience. Actually, she's made a lot of negative comments here with smartphones, but you can see that the father has got a much more positive experience. So being able to split and look at our results just from one of these characteristics or more than one of these characteristics, we can get a sense of doing a comparative analysis. So looking at the differences between the different sources of data and what those are telling us qualitatively about the project. And one of the things about Quirkos is it's always trying to get you to go back to the text. Don't rely on the fact that there's one quote here and 3 quotes for negative. That's not necessarily significant. What's significant is what and how people are expressing themselves and what they're saying here. So this is a very useful function. You can also combine multiple filters here. So maybe you want to see where the family role is mother and mothers who are over 34 or something like that. So you can use these different operandas here, just mothers who are 34. Or, you can add more and more filters here. So with the age and their location might be in a particular state, or just from interviews with mothers who are over a certain age, and so on. So you can add more criteria here, and you can get more and more specific, or more and more vague if you need to find results from different people. Now you can also use this to, if we remove that extra criteria, so if we had the, where's it gone here? So you can also see results just from one particular person. You can also see results here from, if you've got multiple people working on the project, just one particular person. So you can compare the coding from one person with another. And if you've got multiple people looking at the project, that's a good way to look and see what your differences are and where you've agreed on interpreting the data. You've also got text search here as well. And this is useful because if you want to see, let's tap this off for a second. I'll search for number 34. We do a text search here for smartphone. This is something that's going to come up with quite a lot of results. Oh, actually, the phrase is not used very much, is it? Okay. Anyway, so these are all the instances where smartphone comes up, and we can use this to kind of code and work from there as well. It also shows us kind of any results to any work that we've coded, and nothing yet. I think more people are using the phrase phone. So that's obviously one of the things that you don't want to use the text search too much to kind of narrow down how you're looking at interpreting the text. There we go. If we've got phone, then yeah, we get a lot more results. Phone is something that appears a lot more. So you want to make sure that you're using the right terminology and the right kind of codes to describe the thing that you want to look for in the text. So that's the basics of the filter here and the text search, how you can use it to look at the different sources of data that you might have, including keeping literature in one project, but also how you can look at different work that different people did on a project, and also how you could do different work on looking at the different types of participants. So you could look by age, or family role is an important thing in this stage. Or yeah, when you're looking at your literature, maybe stuff by a particular author in a particular journal, or before or after a particular year. And all these things are quite useful ways to kind of subdivide your project, do constant comparative analysis, which we've actually got a video and blog post article about doing in more detail, and comparing the data in your project. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the home button here, and I'm going to look at, we've looked here, we've done basically coding, we've created codes and themes. We will probably refine these and work on them later. So let's look a little bit, just a couple more ways that we can manage the coding system that we're creating here. Because as we go on and create more and more codes, okay, we've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. We'll probably get to the stage we've got dozens or possibly even hundreds of these codes. Let's look at how we can arrange them, manage them, and then we're going to come and look at some of the other ways that we can code and interpret, especially using analytic text. Okay. So with these codes we have here, we will probably get to a stage where, let's create another code here, parenting, probably get to a stage where we've got some codes that we want to basically bring together. So we've created kind of too many codes, and there are some things like parenting and role of parent that are quite similar. This here is about parenting, so let's just quickly put some things in there. Parenting theme, and it's also very common to create a theme, kind of forget about it, and then create another theme which is very similar, slightly different wording. So what we can do in these cases is obviously merge codes together, and we do that by right-clicking on one of the bubbles that we want to merge, choose the merge option here, and then choose the code that you want to merge into. So in that case it's the parenting one here. So merge quote into the parenting code here, and now that's all going into the parenting. So rather than that role of parent, we've got this more general theme which is parenting, but it's also got all the things we said here about role of parent. And this is really common to get to a stage where you need to kind of go through, really kind of review your codes, evaluate them before you start creating like high level themes, probably if you're doing kind of open and axial kind of coding, but also look to see how many people are interested in this, how many people are getting engaged with this particular code and theme, and whether you need to, sometimes split these codes apart. Maybe parenting is too vague, but very often kind of merge codes together. So merge codes allows you to do that. Now, one of the other things that we can look at here is the overlap view. So the overlap view basically counts all the different times where one code appears at the same time as another. The way we've interpreted the data here, we, just for this one sentence here, for example, have put this one sentence into 3 different codes. Now, some types of analysis, you'll probably have very specific codes and you won't use them a lot, or very open-ended codes, and there won't be a lot of overlapping. It does depend how you're coding and how you're trying to interpret the data. But the way we've done this here, we've said that this one sentence is about parenting, it's also a negative statement, and it's also about life with cell phones. Coding in this way in any kind of qualitative analysis software is quite useful because it can keep track of all the different times this overlaps, and because this can start to show you kind of connections between codes which might help you to think about and interpret the data in a different way, but also kind of generate more themes. So the overlap view counts all the different times that this happens and shows us the connection between these. So I'm going to right click on this parenting theme, choose the overlap view, and basically what I get here is a kind of sort of like a graph, and the higher up a code is, the more it overlaps. So life with cell phones overlaps with parenting one time. We've got one comment which is about life with cell phones and about parenting. Okay, I feel that life with cell phones made my job as a parent much harder. But if I click on negative here, this shows me the 2 quotes which overlap with parenting and are also negative. And it's really useful to do this for sentiment analysis, I find, in qualitative analysis. So you've got negative and positive, or you can be a bit more nuanced if you want to. But look to see, parenting, are people saying that parenting's great, I love being a parent, it's really easy? Or do they mostly have negative things to say? So this is implying that most, we've got a positive theme, but it doesn't overlap at all at this stage. So does that mean that people are predominantly saying negative things about parenting? Is that a finding for us in this data? Is it fair to say that lots of people are saying negative things about being a parent? Well, I'm not sure about that. We shouldn't jump to conclusions just on the fact that these are the codes that overlap most. But we can go back here and read the quotes, okay, just from Lynn here, but they should be from all of the different people we've interviewed. And let's read this and see, is this a significant finding? Are people predominantly saying negative things about being a parent? Is that even a relevant finding for us? Is that just kind of common for very tired parents? We need to read this data and go back to it. And that's the important part of qualitative analysis, is going back and reviewing exactly what people are saying about the codes and what they're saying about the data. And make sure that we don't kind of take their quotes out of context, and that they're situated within the wider literature and the wider data sets as well. So that's the overlap view. I'm going to click on the home button again. We can do this for any of the other ones here. So life with cell phones, what's this overlapping with most? Okay, it overlaps equally with parenting, negative and neutral comments. So what we can do here is, for example, we can see negative comments about life with cell phones and then neutral comments about life with cell phones. And we can see read those and see how those compare. So click on the home button again. Great. Let's look here now and see some of the other ways that we can kind of work with the data. And particularly kind of moving away from the coding here, some of the other ways that we can do analytical text. And one of the other features that we have in Quirkos, we'll go to lens source here, is the memo feature. And the memo feature, we'll just click to expand that column there, is a way that we can assign a little memo. So we can write a piece of analytical text about the interview. So how we do this is we basically it works very similar to the codes. We select a piece of text that we want to comment on, and we drag and drop that onto the comment column here. And so we'll put in a comment here. So this person immediately has a very negative take on how cell phones have impacted my family. So we can save that here. There's a button here if we want to add emojis or something like that, something suitably, yes, interpretive. Anyway, and so we can do this for any other bit. So here we can say stupid phone. Oops. Very negative comment. So in this approach, what we're doing here is assigning a kind of our own interpretation. So a little note to ourselves about how we're thinking about the data. So it's kind of a reflexive process. But the other thing that we can use this for, if we were doing something like IPA, interpretive phenomenological analysis, which usually advocates a line-by-line coding model, where we use the participants' own words to analyze and summarize them. So what if we were doing that? Actually, I'm just going to remove these now. Right-click to delete or edit the memos. And I'm now going to do some kind of line-by-line interpretive coding. So job as parent would be one example. Actually, we had something very similar. So that would be a code where we use their own phrases. This is a very important one for me. Constant battle. This might be a theme for other parents, but for now we're just using the participants' own words. This is what's called in vivo coding, using their own words to describe what's going on here. And these are the kind of, in this case, I'm finding these extremely emotional phrases. So waste of energy. Oops, sorry. Let's remove that one, start again. Typed in the wrong box, I'm sorry. So we can type this waste of energy as being from that one. Stupid phone might be another one here. Yeah. So this was waste of energy. Stupid phone. And as we go through the source, what we're doing is basically creating almost like a code, but it's like based on the participants' own words. And in doing that, it's something where we can come back later, and what we'll probably do is probably start to create codes around this. So we could have a code which is called stupid phone. If we found that that was maybe not in those exact words, but something that other people were using. So we can select that text by clicking on that memo, dragging it onto stupid phone. Maybe this is also about stupid phone, this waste of energy, this anger. And maybe this eventually is a theme that changes. So anger towards technology or something like that. So these, as you go through and read more with this IPA kind of approach, you'll get a better sense of what's really meant by these different people talking about the same topics. And it will be really interesting to see how this kind of stupid phone, if other people use similar language, a horrible phone, you know, like bloody thing or something like that. Then we might want to kind of collect those sentences together, collect those highlights together as anger towards the technology. And this is a kind of line-by-line coding approach, which starts by us doing analytical writing, in vivo coding using the comments feature here, and then going later on to review these and build these towards codes. And Quirkos helps you with this because you can have these memos here, because you can select them and then drag and drop that code on there to create codes and higher level themes later on. It can really help with that kind of coding approach, if that's the epistemology, the approach that you're using. One of the other things that you can do with the memo column is, you can see here it says D Turner, so that's how I've identified myself here. But if you're working with multiple people, you can kind of use this to kind of talk to other people. So you can say, what do you think about this, Brian? And Brian is the person who I'm collaborating with. And then they can reply as well. So they can say in here, well, I think this is not very good, or so on and so forth. And you can have discussions within there about how you're interpreting the data, and that can be very useful. One of the other things that you can do in Quirkos is there's a chat function here. Now again, this is really useful. So how would you describe this anger? So you can have discussions if you're collaborating on the project with other people, for how you're going to interpret the data, how you're going to use the codes and the terminology. But you can also see some ways in which you would use this even if you're just kind of talking to yourself. So you can use this for what's called a reflexive journal, or another kind of analytical writing where you kind of talk about your analytical process and use it to capture your own thoughts, your own interpretations, how you're making decisions about coding and interpreting the data. So when you come back to write it up, you've got this kind of as a log, basically, a diary of how you worked on the data. And you can use that to help you write up, because you can remember your process, especially if it's something that takes months or you're doing in stages over the course of many years. So you can also chat to yourself, say, I'm just starting my coding, not sure how to describe anger in this project. And so this could be an optional but very useful way to kind of explore and interpret that data. Obviously, this is most useful when you're kind of collaborating on projects, but it's very useful to kind of keep a running chat, a running memo for yourself kind of within the project. Okay, so what other things can we do here? One of the other things, we looked very quickly at the text search, but one of the other things that we can do here is generate word clouds. So it's kind of interesting actually at this point. So we've got this word anger. I wonder if any of these other words come up. So let's do a kind of brief kind of analytical analysis of this. So we'll click on this is the view button here. We'll click on word cloud. And what this will do is generate on the left side of the screen a word cloud where the size is dependent on basically how often these words have appeared. It's going to be extremely pushed here because there's so much. We've got a very long article here, so these are really kind of the words in the article. But anyway, technology, for example, parent, parents, smartphone. So these are the things which are coming up a lot. Relationships, children. And we can click on any of these to see each iteration. So what are people saying about parent? We can run a text search for parent, and it shows all the iterations. And yes, it's predominantly coming from this article where the word parent applies, and we can use this to code and interpret the data. Also glad to see that it comes up in our parenting theme quite a bit, and we can see here results where the word parent has appeared in our life with cell phone. So again, we're looking at the kind of the overlap between some of these different themes. So with that word cloud view, we can run those text searches for any of them, but it also kind of helps us visualize and explore the different words and terminology. So for example, I mean, people didn't really, the word anger didn't really seem to appear as very significant in this. I mean, it's not enough that it kind of appears here, and there is a cutoff. So anyway, it's interesting to see dissonance. Where you have particular phrases and terminology coming up, it can be quite useful to see this. But remember that this kind of word count is a kind of, the word frequency analysis tool is kind of a quantitative way to explore the data. For real qualitative analysis, it's not something we really encourage people to rely on very much. So yeah, I think it's useful to have to help explore the data, but not something to rely on kind of too much. The other options we have under here in the view, so previously we've been using this canvas view where we've got the bubbles representing the codes. If you're coming from other software, you might find that the list view is actually more familiar. So this is basically very similar to what you get in other software. You've just got basically a list of your codes on the left of the screen. It works in the same way, so you can select some text here, drag and drop it onto one of the bubbles. You can move these around to create categories and subcategories and so on. And sorry, I accidentally closed the project. What else do we have here? And then we also have in the canvas view, we can kind of arrange things. So when you start to have lots and lots of codes and themes here, you can put them in alphabetical order, descending order, by title, by date, by size, and this helps us kind of explore the data more. The canvas view will always go back to how we've arranged it, how we've put these codes around. And one of the things to kind of bear in mind in Quirkos is that this view is very flexible to help you kind of remember when you start to have dozens or hundreds of codes, you can have different colors which represent different things. So maybe everything about phones is in a different type of green, everything about parenting is in a different kind of yellow, or you just have things in a particular part of the screen. So all the parenting themes are over here, all the cell phone type themes are here, and so it can really help kind of work with other data and really help when you've got lots of codes to kind of remember where they are and to kind of structure them without having to have these kind of very formal hierarchies here about what's a subcategory and a subcategory and all these different kinds of ways of doing it. There are also ways that you can group these codes. So if I go to the edit view here, we've got these groups. We've not created any here, but we can create groups, and the advantage of groups is that a code can belong to more than one group. So parenting could be something which is a code and a theme. We can have a group for codes and themes, for example. Or parenting could be something which is opinions, but also practice. So people could be having opinions about how they talk about how they should be doing parenting, and you can also have practice about how they actually do it. And groups allow you to do that without creating these kind of these hierarchies here of parents and sub-parents. So when you come to the stage where you want to kind of export the data, let's look at some of the export options that Quirkos Web allows you to have. Again, these are all in the kind of hamburger menu here. In the export options, we've got the report, which we'll look at in a second. We've also got export as Word document. And what this basically does is bring your data, the whole transcripts back out as a standard Word document, as if you've been through and done it with highlighters. So it uses the memo the comments feature in Word to kind of show color-coded highlights. And it's a very useful way to share your transcript, go away, read it away from the computer, see how you've interpreted it, but also share it with a supervisor, another colleague, or someone you're working with, and show them how you've interpreted the data. So you just click export, sources as Word document, and then that will bring out a file that you can open just in Word with all the data. I don't think you can see it how I've structured this, I'm afraid, but it's basically a standard Word document. The other option here we have is the report. We'll click on the report to generate that. And basically this is a way to kind of get all of your data in one place. So you've got a preview on the left side of the screen of what the report's going to look like, and then a bunch of options on the right to customize that. So if we want to have it as, we can choose how it's arranged, what different sections we have. So we've got tables here, for example, that shows all the information about the sources, the names, who brought them into the project and when, how long they are in characters, and how many quotes we did on each of those. Not very many here, but that's okay. And then here we've got quotes, properties. So we've got graphs here showing that 75% of our data sources are interviews, and we've only got the one journal article that's gone in there. We've got visualizations here of the categories that we created and the relative sizes. And then we've got the extracts of text. And we can choose to customize how these look, and also include the properties in here as well. So we can see that this is a quote from someone who's 35, their family-owned father. We can choose how these are arranged as well. So we can order the quotes by time when they were done, or the position in the source if we want them kind of chronologically, sequentially within the source, or by source title. So if we want them by the name, or their size, or by subcategory, and so on. And when we're happy with how we've arranged this, we can choose to either kind of save it as an interactive web page just like this, save it as a Word document which we can edit, and if you want it as a PDF, you can just choose the print option in your browser here, and you can choose save to PDF, and then that will save exactly how you've saved it as a PDF report. And all browsers will support that, so that's the easiest way to get a PDF report out of there. So those are the main export options. We've also got save as here, and what you can do is if you want to create save it as a new project, this can be very useful. So if you want to look, for example, at how your data was at a particular point in time, it can be quite useful to have a snapshot, like project in September, project October. And as Quirkos is constantly saving onto the same project, if you want to have a snapshot project or a backup, just save it with a new project name. So we can call this smartphone project as of September. And that'll save the project with a new file name and open it up so we can keep working. Smartphone project as of September. We've also got some connections here to the help. Let's have a quick look at some of the other settings that we've got here. So we already looked here at changing the font size to make that a bit easier for us to see in the streaming. We've also got here highlight counter, so if we put that on, it will show us the number of codes for each of them. It's off by default. We can also change the width of the highlight column if we start having loads and loads of highlights. the memo column's usually handy to have a bit bigger. And in the report, we can also generate visualizations of the overlap and hierarchy views if we need to. So now you can see, great, we made these a lot bigger. We've got the quotes here underneath. So lots of ways that you can customize to make sure that Quirkos is kind of exactly how you want to work and how it's working for you. So that's pretty much everything I'm going to cover today. We're almost at the end of the hour-long session. So if you've got any questions, do put them in the chat, and I'll try and answer them there. Don't forget, you can always go to our website also to find any kind of support materials. And you can see with the Learn Quirkos, manuals and tutorials, lots of other ways. So we've got video tutorials there, and we've also got kind of written guides here as well. We'll take you step by step through most of the stuff I've covered here today. There's also full manuals as well, if you're looking for more detail as well. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions here. So, any new features on visualization data connection? Not at this stage. We're pretty happy with the kind of basic features for visualization. We're trying to keep it quite simple. We are adding more and more things to the web version at the moment. And there will be more things that we'll announce in the future, but there's some other kind of fun stuff that we're going to be adding in the next kind of year or so. Also, we select properties. They only appear in the PDF file, but not the Word format. Yeah, that's correct. So the report, the Word export from the report doesn't show all of the detail that you get from the PDF. In general, we'd recommend you create the PDF export. You can even edit that in most versions of Word now. So if you're needing an editing document, it's quite good to go from the PDF. It's the best kind of representation of how the report gets customized. Thirdly, when we exclude some words from the word frequency tables, they still appear in the word cloud. Yep, so if you go into the word cloud here, you've got a stop list. So by default, this has got a list of the 50 most commonly used words in spoken English. So we were the two, because it's implied that they're not going to be useful. But you can add other ones here as well. So we can put parents, and that will remove parents from that when it regenerates. So if you've got other words here that come up a lot, they're not very useful. We get 2015 because it's just there's obviously a bunch of references here, so we can remove these years from the article so that they don't appear in the word cloud. And then when you're happy with how this, you can screenshot this and you can use this often in a kind of appendix to show the different how the kind of text is being visualized. Okay, so we're just about out of time here. Thanks so much for your questions. Do get in contact with us if you have any other questions. We're always available via support@quirkos.com. You can also call us on the phone during working office hours in the UK, but email is definitely the best way to get in touch. We check that pretty much 24/7. Yeah, thanks so much for coming along today. And do give the free trial of Quirkos a go. And we hope it helps you with your qualitative research.